Jeanine and I are CMOs on demand, Chief Marketing Officers, and our clients are organizations, enterprises, middle market companies, venture capital funds, well-funded startups, and female executives, because we really have a deep focus and purpose around supporting female leaders like you and in women's advancement. And our firm is Outfront Solutions, and we have a branding, marketing, communications, and business development practice. So today we're going to talk about data-driven content marketing that converts. So in the past, content marketers put on their customer hat and matched their audience's needs with what they thought, their needs were, and they would come up with ideas for content, and that was pretty much it. But not today. In this webinar today, we'll talk about using a data-driven approach to inform all of your content strategy, and that can give you a read on the mood, your market, and you can better predict what content will convert your readers to clients or drive them to action. So, and just a footnote that we also provide this series with different topics every Friday, the third Friday of the month. And that's always at this time, 11 a.m. Central Time. So with that, let's jump into the presentation. And we have the LeadHERship Credo to kick us off. So this is something that we live and breathe by, and this is the LeadHERship Credo that sets the tone for our discussion today and creating a safe environment to ask all kinds of questions and to a platform to collaborate and hopefully drive your success. So we invite you to talk freely, ask questions, say yes to helping each other, be fierce advocates for each other, reinforce her voice, and be unabashedly visible. So today we're going to run through, and I'm not going to go through this agenda, we'll just jump right in, but basically we're going to talk about content marketing in terms of defining it then and now, what's changed, what tools we have, that sort of thing. We're going to look at some frameworks and talk about the customer journey. We're going to use a real life case study as we do every month to drive home what we're talking about. And then we're going to have ample time for Q&A as well. So today we're going to talk about finding that data to inform your content strategy and really, read your market, predict what content will convert to customers.
So we wanted to just kick off by kind of grounding you in the thens and the nows in terms of content marketing, because it's not a new idea. It's been going on, since custom publishing before the internet. But back in the day, and I hate to say it, but I've been doing it all that time myself. Back in the day when we were going to do content marketing, and we would say to it, okay, well, who are we talking to? Okay, define our audience the best way we could. And what do we want them to know? And obviously, we always wanted them to know about what we're selling and its features. And the key there was always, and still is, why should they care, right? Which really focuses on needs and benefits and how what you do translates into a better world for your customers. The pain points, opportunities, but specificity. And then we'd get to writing. We'd write a great piece, and then we'd place it. And no one really ever knew for real how well it did. We'd go, oh, well, look, we got some extra calls, or, we got some inbound, and we were happy when that happened. But today, not only do we do that, because we still start there when we're conceiving our projects, but we bring in all kinds of data. So now we can really know a lot more, and the landscape's gotten so complex in terms of sale. And I know a lot of people here do a consultative sale. You're not selling a widget like here it is, and here's why it's better and cheaper and faster. But so we usually have to consult. and talk about what the problems and the needs are. So now, though, we're really able to get a pretty good handle out there from a data perspective and research perspective on who the decision makers and influencers are. We can know about their size, we can know about their features, we can know where they are and about their companies. But we always look at a cultural environment, and we think that's really important now in particular, given the pandemic, because culturally, what we care about, what we're thinking about, our needs, our fears, our pain points have changed quite a lot. So that's one thing that we always look at. So we do an exhaustive research on that. And then the other thing that's really great is, thanks to social media and all, you can actually know what people are responding to out there in regard to similar content. And we're going to go into detail about that. But and the topics that actually will generate a response, and really importantly, what your competitors are doing. So you've done all this work, you've decided what your piece is. Before you do anything, you're doing an exhaustive search to see what everybody has been saying about it and how you are going to add particularly new value, right? Also, one of the things we're always looking at is the vernacular. How are they describing? Because often you can differentiate on that basis. The customer journey, we're going to get into that a little bit, but you're going to map your content strategy to each stage, whether it's awareness or validation or closing. You want content that helps people move through that funnel and into your conversion process. And then you're able, even today, to know which content will convert what best in which channel, whether that's social, email, SEO, paid search, right? So that's the thens and the nows, and we're going to cover more of that in detail.
And you can optimize once you learn all that information and you have all those insights and you have a much better understanding of what converts, then you can optimize and leverage those learnings. So we'll talk about that a lot. And one other thing I wanted to point out that Jeanine said is that it's about adding value. It's really about being in service to your audience, respecting your audience, knowing what's important to them, and adding value and creating a piece of content that truly adds value to their lives.
Yeah, and that means something they don't already know. That's why I emphasize knowing what's out there. We're not adding value if we're just putting together a bunch of articles that we saw on Google and rewriting them. And plus, it's not going to help your brand, right? So that's where your brand overlay, your own perspective, your own opinions, right? And it's important in content marketing, depending on the type that you're doing, that sometimes you're stimulating the conversation, in which case you don't have to know everything and you can invite people into that discussion. But we're going to talk about types later. So, why are we all doing content marketing right now? I mean, everybody on the entire planet, whether you're a startup or you're a Fortune 500, you're doing content marketing, right? And the reason for that is because the internet was not created as an advertising vehicle for people to put an ad in front of people. It was created as a vehicle for delivering information. And as you well know, every single search starts on the internet, right? And for any topic. So for that reason, we had to use this medium properly, we had to go to content. The other reason is channel proliferation. And I know I don't have to go into a lot of detail. There's like hundreds of ways to reach your customers, right? And we also know that it takes a bunch of touch points, not just one, across different channels. So we call that omnichannel marketing, meaning we've made an effort to make sure that we're appearing in different channels with the key messages appropriate for that channel and consistent, so that people are getting a consistent brand message. So, SEO, incredible opportunity to intersect with what people are searching for, right? Another reason why content marketing has risen so much is because you could never afford to advertise across all these platforms. If you had to hit those touch points with money, you better be well funded. That's all I can say. So these are the reasons. And we just put underneath, just to mention, there's a lot of free platforms, the content platforms out there to use, like LinkedIn publishing, Medium. You can publish on Facebook, Quora, Reddit, and you can often become contributors to things like Rolling Stone and Entrepreneur Inc. So these are outlets, ways for you to be putting out there the content that we're going to be talking more about. So, and so now let's just talk quickly about what it can do for you and why it's important, besides these other reasons that it rose, which is that when people are searching for something, that is literally the best indicator of their intent to buy. So if they're looking for coaching services, executive coaching services, SEO, we know they're looking. They're not doing it because it's their spare time. Nobody has any spare time today, right? So an intent is a key indicator of how quickly you're going to be able to close somebody, right? Also, it's a pull strategy. In other words, the people who you're not pushing out your stuff and trying to bombard them and interrupt their journey, you're putting out a lure, if you will, and they are responding to this, and they're already self-qualifying because they're responding to what you're saying. So the people who come in through content marketing are really good prospects. Also, content marketing develops web traffic, and the reason why that's so important is that's where we do our conversion. That's where we get them to request a meeting, get together, etc. And also there is remarketing, which is an incredibly good tactic. That means that when people come to your website, there are ways, there's technology that will enable you to take all of those people and go back to them again. And you know how when we go out on the internet, you've gone and visited, you took a look at a blouse on Gilt, and then you went and you Googled executive coaching and a blouse from Gilt popped up. That's remarketing. So this is a great tool. It may not be done, how you do it is important, but it's a great opportunity for people coming to your site who we know are more interested, have greater intent to go back to them and keep reminding them and try to draw them in again. And finally, content marketing gives you an opportunity to go in depth in a way that you rarely get to do in marketing and communications, right? You have an opportunity to write about who you are, what you care about, what your values and beliefs are. And whereas that was important before the pandemic, since the pandemic, we've seen an enormous spike. You know, there's been a lot of polarization and between everybody in the country. And content marketing lets people know whether you're a person they want to align with. So these are like many benefits to content marketing. Nicole, do you want to talk about the MarTech a little bit?
Yeah. And, you know, all of this is driven and supported and bolstered by all the different technologies that are out there. And so we have an abundance of tools and technologies that can help facilitate this process. So you have technologies that are supporting this whole data-driven content strategy and approach that we will demonstrate in the case study an example of one of those specific tools that really help make you smart and understand what people care about and the type of content that they're seeking. There are tools to leverage for the project management of the content development process. You know, maybe you're working with other team members and there's a flow and there's a publish date, or there are distribution tools, as mentioned here, that really help get your content out into the world electronically and create backlinks and things like that. And then you have the relationship, the CRM tools, and then the optimization, the sales metrics. And so those tools are things like, I think we have on the next slide, you know, HubSpot. And did you want to
go to them? Yeah, we're going to go to them in a second. Before we did, I just wanted to say that because content's so time consuming and it's basically expensive in time to create, right? you need to get the absolute most out of it. And that's why these tools are so important. You can't afford to just write stuff and put it across all these platforms and not get the value. So these are the ways to measure that value.
And this is just a short list. I mean, literally, Jeanine and I have done an hour-long presentation on marketing technology tools. And I think there are something like 6,000 of them. Yeah. Literally, these are just a few that we mention, we use. Everyone should be using some of the free tools, the Google Analytics of the world and whatnot. And typically there are free versions of these products. These are just a few that we are in love with. We're big fans of Canva and some of these other tools. I mean, there are just a ton of them, and we're always happy to share knowledge because we've typically either used most of them or we've recommended them to our clients who are at all different stages of their business and sizes. So always happy to give more insight of the tools and technologies that you could use for your content, the actual writing, the visual presentation of that, the distribution, the project management. So these are all examples of those different types of technologies to aid you and support you in this data-driven approach to content marketing.
And I just want to add about Google Analytics, for example. I'm sure you all know about it, and I hope you're using it. It is free. And what's cool about it is, let's say you put a piece of content out, you write it, you put it on Quora, you put it on Reddit, who knows where you put it, right? Or LinkedIn. Your Google Analytics will tell you where people came from. So you'll go to Google Analytics and you'll see, did people come to my website to see more? You're always wanting to link back to your website because, as we were talking about earlier, that's where you're going to convert people, right, into a meeting or a next step or a download or something. So Google Analytics you can use to know quite a lot about what's happening and how people responded to your content. And HubSpot, I just wanted to point out that they also have a free CRM tool there. Yeah. So if you don't have one and you need a rudimentary one to get started, because it isn't the most sophisticated, but it's certainly usable to start and it's free, right? And these other ones, I think Nick has covered very well. So let's go on to here. So this is the marketing funnel. I'll talk about it and Nick will jump in. I'm sure you've heard about plenty of funnels. This is one that we look at, and what we want to talk about is how to map your content to this funnel, right? So the first content you're going to do is just meant to get people to respond in some way. Next, you want to pull them through, right? So that they get closer to you. Let's look at this next one. This one kind of talks about that in relation to the funnel. So, at the top of the funnel, you've got your awareness, right? Your awareness and your education. This is where you're giving and you're putting your own points of view out there. And we put thought leadership as a representative topic. So if you've got good thought leadership, people are going to want to know more. If they learn something, if you gave them an insight, they're going to want to learn more. And so this is where, at that level, what you're really doing is just kind of letting people know who you are, what you think, and the value that you can provide. And that's the best way to get them into your funnel at the top. The next kind of articles should help you convert people, like pull them into a trial or a download, something that turns them into a lead. And these might be an article or speaking engagements. Those are things that start deepening your relationship with your targets for your content. And then how do you close them? Nobody wants to be first or only, right? So it's always important to show, oh, we've done that lots of times before. It was super successful, right? And here's either the name of the client or the industry, something that makes it tangible and believable. And that, again, shows how you delivered value or made something better. So that's when you're getting into the close phase. there's the delight phase, which is just to not ever forget that, and I know you know this, but getting a new customer is so much more expensive than keeping the ones that you have. So you want to continue to serve them, right? And this is where you build your community, you support your repeat business and referrals, and you do this by giving, really, by being generous with your knowledge and expertise. So we're into our case study.
Yeah, let's jump in.
So this case study comes from a project that we did for a global communications conglomerate, a $2 billion firm. And when we were starting to work with them, we were saying, okay, well, what are the key things globally for them? How can we learn about who's out there, what they're caring about, and how the environment that they're in is going to affect this company, right? And we wanted to do this. We actually did this to inform our brand strategy as well as our content marketing approach. So we have an AI partner that is a topic, they're called Engage Simply, and they focus on topic marketing, content marketing. So we did it with them. We did an analysis of what topics and trends were dominating in the industry. And so what we're going to show you is an amalgam of all these sources. This AI, it goes out and it scrapes the competitors, what their thought leadership is, what kind of content they're putting out. It scrapes trade journals, what's being published. It looks at current news, because you've got to always be really current with your content marketing. And it also goes, this is really interesting, it goes into social, and it identifies influencers, because that's where kind of the leading edge is. That's where you find out not what's already happened, which is in the trade journals, but what's coming down the pipe, right? So this is the story it told us. So we talked about leveraging the DNA of the internet, that it's not to an advertising vehicle, it's a content serving engine. So our vision was, and the vision of this organization that we agree with, is that rather than targeting on who people are, you target based on the topics that motivate them, right? And this is really important now, because I'm sure you all know that the privacy restrictions around the world are tightening up, and the ability to track with cookies and privacy and provide privacy are all getting really, and people are disliking, us marketers coming in and grabbing their personal data. So it's good to get off of this targeting of who and into the targeting more on what topics. And so the mission is to create this content strategy for attraction, conversion, close, and retention, as we discussed. And, looking at not only what topics are important, but also which ones you should invest in which channel, right? So something that works on LinkedIn, we all know, like a B2B audience, we're going to be looking at LinkedIn and Twitter. We're not going to really pay too much attention to Facebook. Your different audiences are going to these different platforms for different reasons, and therefore your content has to conform with those reasons. That's a real key point of content marketing. So this was so interesting, folks. You can't even imagine. What we found out was, because we were looking at the advertising, marketing, and client universe. That's kind of what we were looking at, right?
And again, these are the results of what Engage Simply's technology showed us for our client, right? And they're this big marketing conglomerate.
So I think it's going to be interesting to you also, no matter what you do, because some of this applies, right?
Yeah.
Right now, there's a huge amount of emotion out there, and it has to do with the stress of the pandemic, the stress of not having enough employees, right, to do stuff, and technology's become so darn confusing. There are a million platforms, as we were talking about earlier. So everybody's kind of burned out on that right now. We learned through this topic research, we're going to show you the map in a second. We also learned that people aren't such believers. Ad tech has been such a kind of mess. 70% of ad tech dollars don't even go into communicating with the audience. They're wasted. So that's because of all the middlemen between it. So there's a lot of confusion and distrust in all of marketing, and everything that we do.
Yeah.
Even content marketing, right? And making that really work for you. Everybody's struggling with this. This isn't unique to us. Also, there's the business management challenges, and that's speaking to that privacy issues that we were talking about. People are so sensitive. Everyone's sensitive, right? How do you get these outcomes? So everybody's really concerned about outcomes, and social justice awareness super heightened in the last 4 or 5 years, right? People don't want to align. They want to align with like-minded people. That's just a fact. So these were sort of the big key themes from a content perspective that came out for this client, right? And so it looks at macro data and it looks at micro. So there's certain themes that are gathered. And again, this is an AI version. We could never do this ourselves. We don't have the computing power to do that, and our brains would explode, frankly, if we tried to do this. But the machine can, right? And so what it does is it aggregates the big topics, which is kind of like what we were just looking at with the results. And then it also provides the sub data, right? Like what went into that. So what you're seeing here is kind of see the shading of gray and blue and green and pink. And these are sort of those conform with those big areas that we were talking about, social justice and business issues. So on the left, you've got this whole mistrust of media. You've got the political polarization we were talking about. You've got social justice issues. And the way those impact the advertising marketing business is that talent doesn't want to work with people who are doing with agencies that are doing bad things or clients that are doing bad things. And I use that in quotes because we all have different bad things that we don't want to be associated with, right? But that's a huge heightened sense right now. So so in that area, people are concerned about fake news, misinformation, cancel culture. Again, as Nicole pointed out, this has to do with this marketing and communications agency, but it's interesting to know, right?
Yeah. It just, what I love about this type of research, this is when it gets super nerdy. What I love about this kind of research is it gets into such granular detail of understanding what's on the minds of audiences. I mean, we may have in our previous processes and methodologies to get to the right content marketing, we may have identified, at a basic level, okay, yes, we have to address social justice because that is on the minds of people. But to know that in a deeper level, that income inequality or systemic racism or things around the mistrust of the news and, the cancel culture, that gets into a much greater level of detail that you can address across the board in all of your content, whether that's in your blogs, your articles, your social posts, etc.
Yeah. And knowing that is just critical. And I'll just point out to say, you see the number one topic is content marketing strategies, gaps, and misfires. This is because it's a very hard thing to do. And content marketing is difficult. As we're talking about, it can be done, but it takes a lot of effort and a lot of management. So, focus on ROI, focus on the stress of life out there and work. So we, in working with this client, are using all of this to position the company to talk about who we are. And actually, let's look at the next slide because that talks a little bit more about that. So the data is telling us that things are in incredible flux, right? It's new and difficult issues. How are agencies and clients going to work together. This transition, there's a blurring of the lines between advertising and communications, and there's not clear disciplines anymore because of the channel proliferation. So huge transition, right? Also trauma. The folks who were left after the Great Resignation are doing the jobs of, 3, 4, 5 people, right? So they're under stress and they're like burned out. And then there's because of the pandemic, there's new processes, new rules that everybody's having to adapt to. So this is just like another confusing and difficult area, right? And tech fatigue, because even though we have a ton of tools, if you're out there selling on a tools basis, which a lot of agencies, ad agencies and communications agencies come in and they go, we have the best technology to help you do everything that we're now talking about, but they all say it. So it's confusing. What's really working? What isn't? Where are they going to make their investments? And how do they make money from the digital transformation investments they've already made and the MarTech investment? So lots of confusion, lots of stress.
One other thing I wanted to sort of point out is that when we were presenting this to the client, the good news is that it was the machine, it was the AI that came up with this, right? And so in presenting this information to the leadership team, to the CEO, we could say, listen, this is what real people care about and are searching on, and this is what's happening culturally. And it didn't have to be the subjective opinions of, our team at Outfront Solutions. We could point to the fact that this AI really found out what was happening in the marketplace, because sometimes bringing up topics like this is an industry in trauma, that wouldn't be digested well necessarily from leaders in the industry. So this is it's really an amazing thing to be able to lean on and point back to the data to say, the data serve this up. And so we can move forward with this brand in our communications confidently, knowing that we're addressing the things that are on the minds of real people.
And I just want to add that we do a lot of research when we take on a brand strategy client, and particularly one like this with, multi-billion-dollar implications. So we did a ton of research prior to this AI research, and we saw those trends. We were identifying, we're going, oh my gosh, it looks like this. But then when we did the AI and it validated that was a really good 1-2 punch, because we also felt very confident that we were in the right place and going in the right direction. So it does a lot for you, technology, in terms of underscoring your discoveries and your opinions. Here's where we took it from there. So now we know those things. What are we going to do with them? We know the bloom is coming off the tech road. So the industry is in transition, but we don't believe in despair. We believe in positivity, and there's always ways through, right? So, what is going to happen? Well, we can guarantee you that we're not the only ones who know that everything has to evolve, and we know that this industry will evolve, right? There are going to be additional, more trusted marketing systems coming down the pike. And because of our visibility into this company, we know that's true as well. So optimism, bringing some optimism to this environment, really important. And let's transform, let's move through this trauma. Let's talk about, the joy. And what gives us the optimism? It's that you're good at doing what you do, right? I think everybody can relate to the comfort you feel knowing that you're in the hands of somebody who really knows what they're doing. So what we know for this client is that the optimism that we can feel is because of the incredible executional competency that they have. And so we're going to play that up in our content. We're going to be doing a lot of case studies and ROI proof. Trust. We know it's in bad shape in almost every institution, in fact, every institution.
Yeah.
And so how do we get there in terms of clients and agencies? So again, we feel like execution is the key to that. That's what's trustworthy. What's trustworthy is how we do what we do and the fact that you can see that we did it really well and with great competence, right? That's going to build trust. And then back to outcomes, because that's where the trust is. Proof is in the pudding, right? So we'll focus on ROI. So everything we're doing from a content perspective is real focused on ROI, focused on executional competencies, focus on what we do and what that means to a client, right? That's kind of where we're going. And that's where we're going with the brand strategy as well. And that brings us with plenty of time to talk about your issues in regard and your questions and some of what we've talked about here. So let's open it up.
Yeah, I think one of the questions that we saw earlier was around tools. So let's jump in and address that one. Let's see, Radha, you were asking about, let's see, social media management and CRM tools. Well, we have used a lot of those. Depending on the size of the organization and how you're going to scale is a lot of what informs the tools that you choose. So with social media management, you can use the Hootsuite type of tool. It's very, there are free versions. It's very inexpensive, but we've used that quite a lot. We've also tried Scheduled, which is another social platform for management. They do produce some graphics and a little bit of content. And for social media management, you also have the bigger tools, which is like the HubSpots of the world, right? And with HubSpot, you have a really great depth of tracking capability. So you can manage your content in social, track it, to the far reaches of the earth. So those are just some social media management tools. And Jeanine and Abby, feel free to jump in if there are other social media tools, and then we can talk about the CRM tools really quickly.
Oh, I just wanted to say social media, what done right, is really hard to do. And the reason it's hard is because, the tools make it easy for scheduling what time of day, and pulling things together. But
distribution.
Distribution. And also they do give you results, right? And so you can track that as well. Right. So, it really depends on what stage you are at in your company and how much you're going to spend on some of these tools, because they go from soup to nuts and difficult, capabilities.
Yeah.
But, one of the things that might be helpful to you is when you look at this, you say, okay, now what am I going to do with my content strategy, right? Take a look and say, okay, in social, what are like the 4 things about what I do that are going to be kind of my pillars? So one of them is going to be you and your expertise, for sure, right? Another is probably going to be the area that you're working in, whether it's coaching or whether it's marketing, that's going to be something that you're going to want to demonstrate expertise in too. And then you might have then you're probably going to have some other specialties, and that's what your other 2 pillars are going to be. So if you say, okay, I've got these 4 pillars, I'm going to make a social strategy based on these 4 pillars. And then in these tools, you can time them out over a month. So in a week, I'm going to alternate my 4 pillar content, right? And then, and then you plot it out over the month, you schedule it, because it's really time consuming. Nicole handles the spearhead for us, and I'm sure she could tell you lots of stories about how hard it is to get good, consistent social.
Yeah. And I think the point about, how large your organization, where you are in your life cycle, those types of things really play in. I mean, we just did a social media strategy for a $2 billion organization. And really dug into what are those specific content pillars, what are the right mediums, what's the right cadence, and also thinking about the fact that you need to bring audiences along in your content. And in your social content, you can't just assume that everybody knows, a lot about your organization. So you need to keep feeding insights, because people miss it, or need to be reminded. You have to be so clear and so repetitive in your messaging, that you get sick of it. But typically that's what it takes for a message to land and for people to actually really learn about you. And then in terms of CRM tools, we, once again, HubSpot's another tool that, it does the soup to nuts from social management to CRM. But again, it can be more costly. So that's not necessarily great for a startup. We've used a combination of Hootsuite and Copper. Copper's, another one. Pipedrive's another one. That's a CRM that is inexpensive. We like Copper from the standpoint of, it has forecasting tools. It has, ways of list building and segmenting, and really can take in a lot of data and is very customizable, and it's inexpensive. So hopefully that answers your question around tools. If there's something else that you'd like to ask about that, go ahead and put it in the chat.
I'm just going to talk about Copper and why I like it. So I am the lazy CRM person, right? I don't want to go back in there and put in data. So one of the things I love about Copper is it just captures your conversations, and then you have a choice of clicking yes, add that. It's so easy. So all of these tools are really productivity tools as well as data tools. And it's important because I think, Radha, you asked about a startup. And so I just wanted to point out, when you're a startup, you're wearing all these hats, you're trying to market, you're trying to do the stuff. You need tools that are going to make your life simple and not add time to what you have to do. So I think HubSpot, Copper, Hootsuite, all of these tools really do that for you.
Yeah.
So I hope you didn't get dizzy when I went back, but I wanted to get the tools up there, and I'm going to now go forward again.
Are there other questions around content and data and analysis of that?
Hi, this is Dr. Liddy. Do you want me to put the question in the chat, or can I have a conversation?
Good, let's have a conversation, even better.
I love a conversation. So, for me, I find all of the technology really challenging. I've been a professor and lawyer for 22 years, so I'm used to the face-to-face, right, conversation with people. So it literally blows my mind how much technology is necessary, right, to just have the conversation that we used to have back in the day. So my question is, I love the tools that you're sharing. Is there any way of still maintaining that authenticity of conversational relationship building while using these tools?
Yeah.
I love that question.
I do too. I mean, we're all struggling with it, especially since the pandemic, right? How do you do it? I just want to underscore one of the things that Nicole said, which is consistency. So when people see you in these different places, you want to have the same tone. You want to have the similar messages, because if they see you bouncing around, they're going like, oh, I don't get it, right? So that's how these tools do that. But these tools are all designed to get you in front of somebody. And when I say in front of, that's oftentimes not one-on-one in a room, but it's one-on-one like we're doing now.
Digitally,
right?
Yeah.
Right. So Nicole and I, for example, we do new product development as well, and that requires focus groups and that kind of stuff. And let me say, it's hard, but it takes all of your interpersonal skills. They're still there. You just have to use them in this environment and try to be sensitive to the to body language and vernacular and such. So to me, these tools help you get to that point where you're creating a one-on-one relationship with your prospect. Nicole, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, just the fact that, your personal brand or your company brand can absolutely be carried through in the digital medium. I know it feels disconnected in a lot of ways, but if you're authentic to yourself, your beliefs, your values, your voice, your tone, that absolutely can be carried through the digital medium, through your social media posts, through your blog posts. And I also, really strongly encourage you to have a lot of photos out there. It may feel like you're shining a light on yourself too much. And it always feels a little awkward to me to get on platforms like LinkedIn and see our pictures. But, the one-on-one, the human to human has been so lost because of COVID. And so, there is this opportunity to bring your brand personality through the digital medium. And, and that's sometimes a little bit more of an exposure of your values or your particular vernacular and language. But people really cleave to that these days. It's that authentic connection is missing. Like, I miss you all. I'm sitting in my home, by myself. And so this connection at least is a little warmer, but you can make those connections warm through, making sure you're true to your brand and your personality through the digital mediums and the language you use and the topics that you choose to speak about and write about.
I'll tell you, a friend of mine got a coffee. He launched a new coffee company back east, and he launched it like in March 2020, right? And so, needless to say, people weren't coming in for coffee. So what he did was he took social. And I went and looked at it on social and went, oh my God, you are a natural. He talked about the community that he lived in. He had pictures of his dog. He showed pictures of them creating the coffee shop. He showed pictures of what they wanted to do. He shared his hopes and aspirations. And he ended up selling his coffee in bags at all the local stores, right? And then he'd talk about that. Well, he was incredibly successful. And it was only by being really personal, who he was, why he did it, why this community meant something to him and his dog and his mascot. You just knew him and you wanted to buy his coffee. I want to buy his coffee. I'm out here in California, So it is possible. And these are new media that we've had to adapt to. And we're going to have more new media to adapt to. This whole thing is happening so fast. It's wise of us to just understand how people are connecting today and connect in all the ways we can, right?
Yeah.
So think of it as a plus rather than a minus. It's
Right.
the personal plus.
And, and I'm so grateful. I just put it in the chat. I'm so grateful to Linda and the LeadHERship global community, because it is a community and it is a way for us to stay connected and in touch, and also to share about our talents, right? So that we may bring them to others. So we love to amplify, whatever you're doing in social. So please definitely connect with us on LinkedIn. Especially we're on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, posting pretty much daily. And we like to amplify what you're doing. So definitely share with us, definitely connect with us.